This story doesn't start with violence. It starts with a compliment. You have a wonderful smile. Dating used to require courage, eye contact across a crowded room, a conversation that could fail in real time, leaving you exposed and vulnerable. Today, it requires a thumb, a swipe to the right, a photo that's probably 6 months old, a few lines of text, often copied from someone else's profile, often exaggerated, sometimes completely invented. People meet without ever actually meeting. They trust without knowing. Fall for smiles they've never seen move, never heard laugh, never watched fade when the conversation turns serious. In the southern United States, where summer heat clings to your skin like something living, and nights feel heavier than they should, dating apps work the same way they do everywhere else. Casually, quickly, without much thought. Men looking for something new, something easy, something that doesn't ask uncomfortable questions or demand explanations. They swipe while sitting on back porches, beer sweating in one hand. In pickup trucks parked outside convenience stores. In motel rooms with thin walls and flickering neon signs outside. Sometimes while their wives sleep right next to them, phone brightness turned all the way down. And most of the time, nothing happens. Just messages that go nowhere, conversations that die after a few exchanges, plans that never materialize, until, slowly, quietly, something does. At first, it didn't look like a pattern. It never does. A man in his early 40s didn't come home from what he'd called a weekend fishing trip. His truck was found 3 days later at a rest stop, keys still in the ignition, wallet untouched. Another failed to show up for his construction job after telling a coworker he'd finally met someone worth the risk. His last known location pinged from a rural highway that led to nothing but swampland and abandoned farms. A third vanished after a night out, his car discovered near a boat launch just off Highway 61. Doors unlocked, phone gone, no signs of struggle, just tire tracks leading down to the water's edge, then nothing. Southern towns know disappearances. People drift away from bad marriages, debts, bad decisions. They leave for cities up north, or just vanish into the kind of poverty that makes you invisible. The land here is good at swallowing things, secrets, mistakes, bodies. But then pieces began to surface. Not bodies, pieces. A work boot tangled in marsh reeds, still laced. A leather belt with an engraved buckle. Fragments of clothing discovered deep in wetland areas where locals don't go after dark. Places where the Spanish moss hangs so thick it blocks out the moonlight. Wildlife damage, authorities said at first. Alligators are opportunistic feeders. Feral hogs are aggressive, especially in breeding season. The land here consumes what it's given, breaks it down, redistributes it. But families noticed something the police reports didn't emphasize. Before they vanished, every single one of these men had been active on dating apps. Multiple apps, actually. Profiles carefully curated to suggest availability without commitment. And their last conversations, the ones recovered from cloud backups and phone records, all followed the same pattern. Investigators recovered phones from vehicles, pulled cloud backups from suspended accounts, reconstructed deleted chat histories through carrier subpoenas. Most conversations were exactly what you'd expect. Flirtation that felt rehearsed. Plans made without real intention. Casual lies told so often they almost sounded true. My marriage is basically over. We have an understanding. She doesn't even ask where I am anymore. But the final chats were different. Strange. Almost ritualistic in their emptiness. Because after the men disappeared, their conversation histories showed only one remaining message. Not a goodbye, not a threat, not a location or time. Just a single sentence. You have a wonderful smile. That was it. No follow-up, no explanation, no emoji or punctuation beyond a simple period. And here's what made investigators uneasy. The account that sent it had vanished, completely. Not deleted in the normal way, where metadata and registration information leave traces. It was just gone, as if it had never existed at all. The message appeared again in another victim's phone, and again, and again. Same exact wording, same punctuation, same timestamp pattern, always sent between 11:47 p.m. and 12:13 a.m. Always the last thing they read. Witnesses, bartenders at roadside dives, waitresses at truck stops, hotel clerks working night shifts, described a woman seen with some of the men shortly before they vanished. Mid-40s, they said. Maybe late 40s. Unremarkable in that specifically intentional way. Brown hair pulled back in a simple ponytail or bun. Clothes chosen not to stand out. Jeans, plain tops, nothing flashy. No jewelry that caught the light. No perfume strong enough to remember. She didn't flirt loudly or laugh too much. Didn't draw attention to herself. One witness, a bartender named Marcus who'd worked the same dive bar for 16 years, said something that stuck with investigators. She looked tired, not sick tired, not drunk tired, just worn down, like she'd been beautiful once and was angry about it. But here's the problem. Other witnesses never saw a woman at all. Some men were last seen alone, getting into their own trucks, driving into wetland areas late at night with that particular expression people get when they think they're being clever, when they think no one knows. They told bartenders they were meeting someone special. They texted friends about finally getting lucky. They updated their locations one last time before their phones went dark. This raised another theory among investigators, one they didn't like discussing publicly. What if there was no woman? What if the profile, the photos, the flirtation, the messages, belonged to a man pretending to be one? Catfishing with a different endgame than usual. No proof ever confirmed either version. No arrest was ever made. No suspect was ever named. Only the sentence remained, appearing and reappearing like something carved into the algorithm itself. You have a wonderful smile. And the swamps, which kept their secrets the way they always had. Profilers eventually built a theory. They always do. It's how they make sense of senseless things. They believed the killer, if there was one, if this was even murder and not some bizarre string of coincidences, wasn't hunting randomly. The victims shared too many traits for that. Men in long-term relationships. Men with active dating profiles on multiple platforms. Men who describe themselves as just looking, or discreet, or exploring options. Men whose profile photos showed them smiling with that particular confidence. The profiler's report, leaked to a local journalist months later, suggested a motive rooted not in sexual thrill, but in something colder. Resentment. Calculated revenge, not against the victims themselves, but against what they represented. And slowly, a backstory emerged. Speculation mostly, rumor built on rumor, but it felt true in that way urban legends always do. A woman in her mid to late 40s, recently divorced. Not acrimoniously, no screaming fights, no thrown dishes. Just discarded. Replaced. Her husband had left her for someone younger, someone he'd met online, naturally. Someone with better photos, smoother skin, brighter teeth. Someone who didn't have stretch marks or crow's feet, or the particular exhaustion that comes from raising children while he worked late, stayed out longer, stopped looking at her the way he used to. The theory suggested she didn't see herself as a killer. She saw herself as an exterminator, someone removing pests. Someone correcting an imbalance in a system that had always been rigged against her, balancing a scale that had tipped unfairly. According to the profiler, the sentence wasn't random or meaningless. These things never are. "You have a wonderful smile." It was something she never heard anymore, something her husband used to say when they were young, when he still looked at her across dinner tables, when his hand still found hers in movie theaters, before he stopped looking, before he stopped touching, before late nights at the office became later, before the phone was suddenly password protected, before she found the apps installed on his iPad. Dozens of conversations with dozens of women, all of them younger, all of them told the same lies. The men she targeted, if she existed, if this was targeted at all smiled the same way in their photos. Confident, unbothered, certain of their own desirability, certain they deserved whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted it. Consequences be damned. She didn't want them, the theory went. Not sexually, not romantically. She wanted what they symbolized destroyed. Proof that people like her, women who'd done everything right, who'd stayed faithful, who'd aged naturally while the world rewarded youth and punished time, were replaceable, disposable, invisible. So she made them invisible instead. One by one. The meetings themselves remain a mystery. No locations were ever confirmed through the recovered messages. Remember, only that one final sentence remained. No addresses, no times, no arrangements visible in the digital record. But investigators pieced together a theory based on where the vehicles were found, where the remains surfaced, where the last cell phone pings originated. Never public restaurants where cameras might catch license plates, never busy bars where regulars might remember faces. Always somewhere isolated, somewhere locals avoided after dark. Old boat ramps where teenagers used to party before someone drowned. Abandoned fishing docks that sagged into black water. Service roads leading into wildlife management areas, the kind marked with faded signs warning about alligators and water moccasins. Investigators believe earlier messages, the ones that vanished along with the account, must have suggested these places. Vague invitations. Somewhere quiet, somewhere private, where we won't be interrupted. The men arrived expecting discretion, expecting excitement, expecting someone grateful for their attention. They found silence, and something else. Something that left behind only pieces, never enough to tell the whole story, never enough to identify without dental records. No bodies were ever fully recovered. The swamps don't work that way. Water moves, predators feed. Decomposition accelerates in heat and humidity. Just fragments. Evidence that someone had been there. Proof that they were gone. And the land, patient and ancient, erased the rest. Then, as suddenly as it started, it stopped. No new disappearances that fit the pattern, no new messages matching the phrasing. The police task force quietly disbanded. Media coverage faded. Life continued the way it always does after tragedy, slowly, uncomfortably, until the discomfort itself fades into routine. The apps updated, profiles changed, new faces replaced old ones. People moved on, because people always do, because they have to. Authorities never made an arrest, never named a suspect. The case files remain open but inactive, gathering dust in a sheriff's department basement, filed between a 2009 hit and run and a series of cattle mutilations from 2014. One of dozens of cold cases that will probably never be solved, forgotten by everyone except the families still waiting for answers that won't come. Dating apps promise connection, companionship, love maybe, if you're lucky enough or patient enough or attractive enough. But anonymity is their shadow, always present, always hungry. Photos can be old, borrowed, stolen from someone else's vacation pictures. Names can be false. Stories can be invented, embellished, borrowed from movies or books or other people's lives. And some people don't use them to find love at all. They use them to be seen by someone who stopped seeing them, or to punish, or to fill a void that can't be filled, only fed. No one knows if the killer was ever real, if she exists somewhere, living a normal life, guilt-free and satisfied. If he does, some man acting out his own resentments, his own rejections, or if the whole thing was coincidence, magnified by fear, pattern-seeking minds finding connections where none exist. But the sentence remains, archived in screenshots, shared in whispers on true crime forums and Reddit threads, discussed in podcasts that specialize in digital age horror. You have a wonderful smile, a compliment that doesn't feel like one anymore, a warning wrapped in politeness. Because in a world where strangers know your face before they know your name, where attraction is measured in seconds and trust is built on pixels, where you can become anyone you want to be and meet anyone who wants to believe you, it's easy to forget how little you actually know about the person on the other side of the screen, how little they know about you, and how much damage can be done in the space between a message sent and a message read. So ask yourself something, right now, before you go to sleep tonight. Has anyone told you today what a beautiful smile you have? No? Then maybe you got lucky. Or maybe you're just not their type. Sleep well, and check your matches.